Welcome back. Just before the break, we were talking about our guest involvement with journalism, particularly Janamat Weekly, which celebrates 50th anniversary this week. We'll be going back to the chief editor of Janamat Weekly, the chief editor of Curry Live, the vice president of Commonwealth Journalists Association, and former president of London Bangla Press Club, Syed Neaz Pasha. Mr. Nahas Pasha, in 1993, you established London Bangla Press Club.
Well, I was one of them. It's not me only, but I was one of them.
You are one of the founding fathers.
I was one of the founding members. But I think, see, in 1993s or 90s or late 80s, there were only few newspapers, 3 or 4 newspapers. I think Janamat, there was 1990, there was Natuddin, Shurma, another one was Jagaron. There were 4 newspapers, weekly newspaper, and so there were not many journalists working in the field. There was no TV or the full, all day or long radio or something, 1 or 2 radio had 1 hour or 2 hour program.
Yeah, like Spectrum
Spectrum, I think it was
2 hours.
Spectrum was 2 hours. Spectrum was different language, multilingual radio. There was Sunrise Radio. Sunrise had, I think,
half an hour.
Half an hour or something at midnight. But with the newspaper, all the newspaper, just like you have politics in Bangladesh. There are Bangladeshi political parties and people who are involved with Bangladeshi political parties, Awami League, BNP, and all these. And so with the 3 newspapers, we sometimes if you print some controversial news or anything, or people get upset and everything. So,
but that's good for the journalists, isn't it?
Because well, it is good for journalists, but of course, so we thought that we should have an organization where we could, if anyone sort of threat us or if anyone is unhappy about it, so that we can be together, and that's why
we can take a united stand.
Exactly, we can take a united stand. It's not only that. It's also for good, for any campaign or because of we were united, all the journalists, all the newspapers. Now we have MPs and baroness and all these. So in 1992 we just got together and we thought, well, let's form a club, and that's where we formed with as 8 or 9 of us from 3 newspapers. We formed London Bangla Press Club. And it was going all right, but because there was not many journalists, activities was very limited, And then in 2003, again, the television came, Bangla TV, and later on, I guess, NLS, and also quite a few, I think, a few other newspapers. And there were people who, so we sat down and said, let's reorganize the club. So we reorganized the club, and we said, we had a dream that we will have one of our office on that time. We said, let's reorganize, raise some fund, and we will have our office. So we formed again a new committee in 2003. 2005, we said, let's bring democracy into the club. We had about 30 or 40 members. So let's go for election, and we do democratic process. Through this process, through the election, you have a constitution, you have a process, everything. Club is becoming like a formal, formal organization with a lot of plans and programs. So then we had first election in 2005. I was general secretary then for 4 years, and and then we had every 2 years election, and we raised fund in 2005. with a dinner about 62,000 pounds. And that all came from the business people in the country. They donated 2,000 pounds each.
Business people from the community.
Yeah, business people from the community all over, from Newcastle to Manchester, Birmingham, London. They were, the club leaders, we went to those business people to have our own property. And I'm really, really thankful to the trust people,
Trusted you.
Yeah, that they really trusted. So we raised first fund, and then it took us a long time to, I became president a couple of years ago, and we have our own office now, and we rented office, but we have got plan to buy a property which could be either, subsidize the rent or.
What is the activity of this club? Or probably
it's a
in
social.
time to come, probably you'll name it association.
See, it's a social club. It's for because we didn't have any office until until 6 months ago, but we managed to have a lot of activities, a lot of cultural activities, trainings, and meetings with members and community and others. But since we have the office now, we also club has we raise fund through our finance come from holding press conferences, and people pay fees. Now we have an office. We have regular event, like people have press conference. Sometimes we let people our office for meetings and other things. Other things like we club members have a lot of activities. We observe the World Press Freedom Day. We observe the Bengali New Year. A lot of social activities as well. Trainings for the club, and now there are a lot of members, because so many televisions and people who are involved with the social media, online media. We have over 300 members now all over the country, and it's not all of them are journalists, but the people who work in the media. Of course, there are journalists too, as well.
Well, this is the age of citizen journalism.
Exactly. So
the funding comes from the
members? Funding comes from. We had funding. Sometimes we had grants. Sometimes we have funding through sponsorship. From the businesses. A lot of the activities we do, we raise funds through the sponsorship from the businesses. Some also the funding also comes from the membership fees.
Does this club have particular leaning towards any particular party, either in Bangladesh or in this country?
No. We try to avoid any political affiliation apart from maybe if we follow maybe another journalist association, NUJ or and we try to avoid the politics of Bangladesh or politics of here, because that's where our strength is. That if you keep, as a journalist, if you keep your independence, then
Yeah, but the newspapers, particularly the newspapers that are printed in Bengali, published in Bengali, they do have leanings, I'm sure.
I think some of the newspaper have all the you cannot call them every newspaper neutral or independent or but. Particularly, if I talk about Janamot has a leniency. Janamot believes in 1971, and pro-independence and everything. Not any.
But it doesn't follow or support a particular party.
No, it doesn't follow support, but it's pro-independence and pro-1971, you can say. But obviously, other newspapers, they have their own policy. We have our own policy as well, editorial policy. And of course, because being newspaper in London, our priority also, the community is here, not the community in Bangladesh. Of course, we carry the news of Bangladesh.
People are interested in knowing what is happening back
Of course, yeah, readership, you can say 50-50, you get. But now, a good newspaper or newspapers could run with enough stories, generated by, over 500,000 Bangladeshis, and not only Bangladeshis, because the society is, the integration is more than what it was 40 years ago, so any newspapers, I wish there is a newspaper which is for the BME community, which is, but there were one or two, but it didn't survive well. I remember in 80s, if you watch Channel 4 or BBC, they were even in 70s, you probably have half an hour program in the morning. Yeah, you remember they used to have a program called Nahas Zindagi, and they used to have in half an hour program, so either a Bengali song or a Punjabi song, a little bit of entertainment, and every Sunday morning you wake up at 9:30 and you have to see Naya Zindagi Naya Jeevan. What a change now.
I remember it was in black and white.
Yeah, it was black and white TV that time. Yeah, and there was some program on that. I still go on YouTube and try to find those and watch it. It takes you back.
But black and white now looks very fashionable. I mean, vintage.
I know.
But those days, because we didn't have the choice.
Yeah.
So we looked at it with this day. No, come on. If this lady, I mean, particularly lady, if she could be seen in color.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when we had, the first handheld, TV came out, like a transistor, and with a little screen, and it was something. Oh God, there's a TV in your hand with a long aerial in it, and now with the what a change! The change is what we have seen in last maybe 20 years,
Well, talking of change, what do you think? I mean, as a seasoned journalist, what do you think this social media, we call it, for lack of a name? I mean, I won't call it media as such, but it's communicating information, news, and all that. Mostly fake, mostly ideas and opinions rather than news itself. But what impact will it have on journalism, like you have been doing, like I've been doing?
I think the danger is, or not the danger, I mean, I still love my newspaper in the morning, any newspaper, to see it.
Yeah.
But if you see the younger generation in this country, they don't read newspaper, they just go online and read, or it's, if they have a particular interest, they just, if it's a sports, they just go into sports, it's a showbiz, they just go showbiz,
It's more convenient, isn't it?
It is convenient, but when you buy a newspaper, you browse through, you have everything in it.
True.
So, you tend to look at it, and if you find it interesting, okay, sports, I'm not a sportsman, I don't read much sport, but when you see a newspaper, and then, but with the internet, you are focused on sport, you can go into the sports, you just ignore the others,
You can avoid economy, housing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it is something. When you talk with the younger generation, youngsters, they just focus on one particular things, not as if you read a full newspaper, you are aware of all over the what's happening in the world, unless but. Also with the social media, if they're on like Twitter or Instagram or anything, people who follow these things, they sometimes follow other things. But I think, but I love still reading newspapers. With the fake news, it's always people say about the Facebook is the main culprit with the fake news. But to me, I always check it, if
before you pass it on.
Exactly, before I pass it on, or once I see it on the Facebook or anything, or any links, I see where it comes from, the source and everything. Right. Otherwise, you can.
But sometimes the sources look so valid, with the kind of names they have, see.
Yeah, yeah,
They look
yeah.
as
You can
if-
create. You can create exactly like a newspaper with the
Yeah.
false news and everything, and that's what with the technology, you know, you really have to, you know, sort of live with it, and I'm sure technology also can prevent,
Yep.
you know, spreading the
Right, it
the
takes a
yeah,
thief to
yeah.
catch a thief, so
Yeah,
you
exactly.
need technology
Yeah,
to
yeah,
beat the
exactly.
technology.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We need to take a break, and when we come back, we'll pick up the same thread. Thank you for being with us. Thank you.